What starts here changes the world. I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CARES Project podcast. Today we have with us Chris Carbert, who is one of the Coutts Four and one of Canada's political prisoners, who is standing up for the mandates, and I mean was treated like a terrorist. And so, I mean, just introduce yourself to our audience. Like this was horrific. Go ahead.
Yeah, as you said, my name's Chris Carbert. Born and raised Southern Alberta. Before the protest, I was a full-time single dad, business owner. Um, just your normal everyday outdoorsman. Did a lot of camping, a lot of hunting, all that kind of stuff. And then Coutts happened. Out there for 16 days. I had actually had planned on leaving Coutts and had my trailer all packed and everything, but I ended up seeing Tony Olienick, who was one of the other four, and I didn't know Tony very well, but I knew he had been staying in the back of his truck, and I asked him if he was still staying in the back of his truck because it was going from about plus 10 to minus 25, and he said yes, and so I ended up leaving my trailer for him. So that's what ended up keeping me in Coutts, because I went back there and the police wouldn't let me in, and I went back in and started chatting with everybody, and the next thing I knew it was 16 days later, and I was being woken up in my trailer, being loud hailed out of my trailer. So, and the rest is history from there.
So, so you were out there peacefully protesting with everybody else who were pissed off about the mandate, and the next
Yep.
thing you know, you're getting woken up out of your trailer and getting hauled out by the police.
Yeah, I mean, 4 or 5 hours before it, I was playing street hockey with kids, right? I mean, um, yeah, I mean that was the biggest. The message from everybody out there was make sure it stays peaceful. Make sure it stays peaceful. We were having sermons out there. We were having um, gospel bands come out and stuff. I mean, there was two parts to the Coutts protest. There was Milk River,
Yes,
which was kind of where you would call the party, and
yes,
then there was Coutts, which you called the business and the families and stuff.
yes,
And I mean, it was nothing but quiet and, eating. And like I said, sermons. I mean, Pulowski came out and did his speech, as everybody knows, and was then arrested and charged and convicted as well for, for putting on basically a sermon and saying, don't give up, stay out here, hold the line. So, but this is the weird world we live in.
well, yes, and it's you mentioned about having the sermons and so forth, and having the display of your faith, and I'm a Christian as well, and I when they came and arrested me when I was going into court against the RCMP over the COVID mandates on July 23rd of 2020, they arrested me and put me in a mental institution for religious and persecutory delusion because I'm like, well, my Bible says thou shalt not kill, and I'm not going to let somebody die because of your gross negligence, which I thought at the time, which now I know it's deliberate intent. And then I look at
Absolutely.
what happened to Archer, what happened to Derek. There's this overarching theme of going after Christians. And then looking at you being a single father, that's another thing that they don't necessarily like because
Yeah.
I mean they make men look bad, but single fathers, if you're gonna have a single parent, it's better to have the father being the single parent than the mother because the father is designed to deal with all the pressures of the outside world where women are more vulnerable and they don't like family men at all. So
Yeah. No. um, Yeah, I mean, we're up against some we're up against some evil right now. There is definitely a spiritual battle going on. There is no doubt about it.
mhm.
Um, I mean, I can't remember if you were in court for Derek's. You were, yeah, you were that day. And as soon as he started quoting scripture, she pretty much stood up and ran out of the courtroom. It was the oddest thing I have ever witnessed in my life. I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I saw.
I mean, this is the world that we're living in. Like, I mean,
Cheers.
I've talked to judges, and I told them, I said, my Bible says no, so I'm not going to do that. So I don't care what you do. He said, find me to the ends of the earth. I don't care. The answer was still going to be no, because Christians, this is why they don't like Christians, because Christians will be like, well, God says don't do this, so no. I'm not going to be,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to fight you. I don't have to be violent, but I'm not going to do it because he says no. You can't tell me otherwise, right?
God's law is supreme over all,
Yes.
right? So
So,
they can't control Christians. Is what it is. Is they can't, the fear doesn't work. The none of their typical propaganda works on us.
that's,
So we have God, right?
yes.
They're not our gods.
So, kind of circling back to what was going on over there, some of my viewers are in the United States, and I'm going to ask everybody, please share this. I'm heavily suppressed. This is something that people need to hear about, especially in the United States, because people understand what happened to J6, but these guys were like getting the same kind of treatment and even worse by the legal system because Canada doesn't have the same kind of protection. So please share this out as much as you can so that everybody can see this. So going back to that, so you're sitting down there, you're in your camper, like your trailer, and then
Not right on the site either. We were at somebody's house, a lady's house that lived inside of Coutts. So we weren't right on site either. We were actually on private land, um, away, 2-3 blocks away from the protest site.
mhm,
So that's where they came. So Tony and Chris had, so on February 13th, 2022, there all of a sudden there was a huge presence of police, RCMP, in full tactical gear, um, helmets, in everything. Pretty much looked like they were going to war.
yes,
And so most of the protesters were like going like, "What are you doing? There's nothing but families here, nothing but families here." And there was some younger guys that were getting a little bit mouthy, so I said to Tony and Chris, I said, I don't want any part of this. I'm going to go back to the trailer and just go to bed. I don't need any troubles. So I went back, and then I had a knock on my door saying that Tony and Chris had been arrested. And I said, why? And they said, we don't know why. So they had arrested those two. And so I just went to sleep because I hadn't been feeling well. Earlier in that day, I got up for a while, went and ate and played some street hockey and stuff. But I hadn't been feeling well for about a week out there, and so I went to sleep early, and then, like I said, all of a sudden I was being loud hailed out of my trailer. Um, so I got on my phone because there had been a lawyer out there, that was talking with the RCMP on behalf of the protesters. A lawyer, and then there was a couple of other men that were talking to the RCMP as well. But so I was calling these guys to get the lawyer's number, and then I got the lawyer's number, because I wasn't too sure what was going on. I was like, I'd being loud hailed out of my trailer, and I was confused. So I ended up walking out of my door, and I had a laser sights all over my chest, which I instantly threw up my arms, obviously, and I was so rattled that they told me to go towards the back of my trailer, and I started going to the front of my trailer. They started yelling at me. So and then I turned around and went backwards, and I was arrested and put in jail, and um, sat in there for 29 months before I got a trial. Never got any bail.
so you came out and you had all the laser pointers on you when you,
I had lasers on me.
oh wow.
Yeah.
And I saw the the story in the picture that they put was with the RCMP truck with all the firearms and stuff like that, which from what I was told that it wasn't even actually from there. They took it from another um uh,
So so I'll just make sure that this is all correct. So there
yes.
were multiple trailers searched out in Coutts.
Okay.
So what they've done is they've made it look as though that great big picture, because of course we are the only ones in the headlines, right?
Yes.
They made it look as though those all came from our trailer. Yes, there were firearms in my trailer. There's always firearms in my trailer. I'm an outdoorsman. I mean,
Yes.
you could go in there and there'll be a bullet in this drawer, a bullet in that drawer. The back bunk will have this or that. That's my lifestyle.
Yes.
Um, but most of them did not come from us. Most of them came from the other two trailers. The one trailer full of guys, all charges dropped. The other trailer, the one guy ended up running out of money, so he couldn't take it to trial, and he took one of the charges. And for what it was, the exact same charge that Tony and I got, they gave him 2 years house arrest, but they gave us 6.5 years.
Wow.
I know. So and then, so as you know, in Canada, we go off case law for sentencing. And for this particular charge, none of our friends could find anybody else that served any more than 2 years. And this person that did was a lifelong criminal, so in and out of jail all of his life.
Mhm.
So we were sentenced 4.5 years more than any other person. And then so, and I mean, really, we were sentenced, we were found guilty for that charge too because of the judge's charge. So they knew they were in trouble in the trial. They knew they weren't going to get anything. And I'm paraphrasing because I can't quote for quote, but the judge told the jury when he was giving them their charge, which is telling them how to decide on the various charges. He told them with the weapons dangerous to public peace, which is what we ended up getting charged with, that they could find us guilty based on what they thought maybe could have happened out in Coutts with the presence of firearms out there. Well, that's not how the law goes. You're found guilty based on evidence, not on what maybe could have happened. But
This
that's just a little part of the weirdness of our trial. There was a lot of things that went on in our pre-trial and so on and so forth.
this is actually this is very bad. It's terrible. And I tell people when I understood that there was a big problem with the Canadian justice system, I was a kid. And we learned about the David Milgaard case. And when I saw that, I was like, there is something seriously wrong. And then I remember when he got acquitted and they had the DNA evidence. And this was, I think, in the not like
Yep.
in the 90s and so forth. So they had a guy that they knew had an MO of a rapist in that manner, Larry Fisher, and so forth. They knew that they had a suspect that fit that, who they knew had a criminal history like this, but instead grabbed this kid.
Yeah, that case is crazy what they did to that man, and the things that happened to that man inside of jail are horrible, horrible. What that man went through.
Yes, but now we're seeing that type of thing happening widespread because this is what's happening. The same type of thing was happening in your guys' case. This
Well,
is,
our case, it started as a cover up for the Trudeau government because they used us as a reason to implement the Emergencies Act, which then became a cover up for the Crown prosecutors and RCMP when our lawyers caught them in crimes. Our lawyers were given information that the Crown screwed up and gave them something they shouldn't have. And as our lawyers were saying to the judge in court, these crowns, they'd never come across anything. There was no case law, nothing like of anything like this in all of Canada, and that these crown prosecutors needed to be criminally investigated and criminally charged for what they had done. And because judges are not supposed to be looking at evidence in a pretrial, they're supposed to be judging on what is presented to them from both cases. Well, these crowns then had to leave. They had to bring in another crown to argue it. The judge's decision for deciding to look at this evidence was, considering the caliber of lawyers that these men have, I have to believe what my colleagues are saying to me. And so he went to look at it, and then he didn't believe these, or he didn't agree with these four lawyers. So I mean, he didn't agree with them because there's obviously pressure. I mean, we know that there was pressure from Ottawa, from inside of Coutts and on. It's inside of our disclosure. We know we know what was his name at the federal minister, the
David
justice minister,
David Lametti, criminal.
Lametti.
Yes.
They're all, man, and just it's what's scary with our system right now is it's the type of people that are advancing into the higher positions, right?
Yes.
They're the yes sir people, and those are the scary people, right? That are okay turning a blind eye. Like some of the things that the Crown prosecutor in our case put a RCMP officer on the stand, got him to lie, saying that one of the other guys said all this stuff to him and everything. But little did they know that this one of the other guys had a live stream going that was being recorded, and it wasn't even this officer wasn't even there. But they had this guy come onto this stand and start saying that he witnessed all this stuff. Wasn't even there, and then the Crown prosecutors must have heard whispers inside the hallway because it was yeah. Before the trial, they always put people on, and I don't know what I don't even I'm not too sure what the term is, but they go through things with it to see if they're a good enough witness to put on the stand. Well, the Crown prosecutor obviously heard whispers inside the hallway because everybody knew there was a video to prove that this guy was lying on the stand, right? And we were just itching to get him on the stand, right? Because, well, you got all this video. Well, where are you? I thought you said you're the one talking to this guy, right?
Yes.
So, but this is how bad it is. The Crown is pulling people and asking them to go into the stand and lie. We're in our pre-trial. We're doing our search warrant applications. They put on the guy that drafts the search warrant affidavits. He goes up there and he says that they go through the various different types of search warrants they're trying to get, and they decide they don't have enough evidence. And then but the Crown obviously didn't. Either this guy was very truthful and didn't want to hide anything on the Crown, like whether the Crown told him to or not, he didn't want to. You could tell he screwed up. The Crown was reeling. And right after this guy was supposed to be the lead investigator. And earlier in the day, the Crown had said that he had talked to her. She was on her way. She'll be here for 1:00. And we go and we have a little break after this officer that did the search warrants and spilled the beans that he wasn't supposed to. And then we come back after break, and he says, "Oh, I just talked to the officer, and I was wrong. She wasn't on her way yet. So we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow." Well, yeah, we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow because you need to prep her. Well, she comes the next day, and she can remember and she had been missing about 8 hours of her notes. Our lawyers were like, "She's missing 8 hours of notes. What the heck's going on?" And it's these 8 hours where this guy had said that she was getting him to do a whole bunch of stuff. Well, there was no notes of it. And she could remember all of the whole protest crystal clear, but this 8 hours, and she kept going. They'd ask her questions. She'd be like, I don't recall. And the lawyers are like, well, how convenient that you can remember everything, but these 8 hours where you don't take notes, right? Oh, but these are the people we're dealing with.
Yes. One of the things that really irritated me about, like, when I watched all of this stuff happening with you guys, I was very angry because I knew from the beginning the whole thing was criminal, and it started with the federal government. Like, because my background is mechanical engineering, I'm a technologist, got a bachelor of technology, and so when I whistle blew the engineering. So this starts with the Public Health Agency of Canada and every health agency in this country, in the United States as well. They didn't do any proper engineering control. The Public Health Agency of Canada is responsible for the BSL-4 lab in Winnipeg and the one they're constructing in Saskatchewan. So they are well aware of engineering controls, and that's the first response of the pandemic. So when the Public Health Agency of Canada went to instruct Patty Hajdu, right, to institute the Quarantine Act, wrong, finished, because that's not your first thing to do. First thing you do is lay out your engineering controls. Then you can start talking about quarantine because this is their protocols. I pulled up their biosecurity and so forth, like from the BSL-4 labs and all these things, and the risk assessment, they were wrong from the inception. This is why the hammer came down on. So when I was here,
there was an agenda.
Oh, absolutely. This is why they did what they did to me right off the bat. They just destroyed me instantly. right? And so when I sat and I saw
Which
this,
makes
I'm like,
sense, right? From the beginning. I mean, hiding the proof, hiding the
well,
truth.
well, exactly. You're looking at $1.7 trillion spent in this country. So when you guys were like, we don't want vaccine mandates, all those guys that invested all that money that wanted to get their contracts filled with the governments, they were like, no, 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 that ain't going to happen. So what did they do? They used you guys to make an example of it.
Absolutely. I mean, we're an example for multiple things, right? An example to all the freedom fighting people, basically telling them this is what we will do to you
Yes,
if you fall out of line, right? And I mean, Tamara and Chris, they're the same thing. The Coutts Three, same thing, right? I mean, Tamara and Chris, and then the Coutts Three. These are all people that were kind of between the protesters and the police. They were having communications, and who's ever going to help the police ever again, right? I mean, they're, nobody's going to want to communicate with them in fear of being charged and going to jail. I mean, it's we're just in a weird world. We're in a world where um, our political our system believes they're rulers. They're if you don't think like them, um, then it's a problem, and that would be our problem. And their willingness, what they're willing to do to people that don't think like them, is absolutely frightening.
it's insane what they're
Yeah.
doing. Like, I I was born and raised in Winnipeg. If you told me 30 years ago that this would be the state of our country, yes, I knew there was corruption, but this much control, I would have just been like, nah, man. Like, I would have thought that it would have been
Well,
not this bad.
I grew up such a proud Canadian, such a proud Canadian. I loved this country, and don't get me wrong, I still love this country. It's just it's not the country I grew up in. Um,
100%
it's
agreement on that.
yeah, I mean, even from we went in. I went on February 14th, 2022 is when I went into jail, and I got out July 14th, 2025. Um, I couldn't believe the change in the world just from me being inside, right? Because in there, all you get is you get left wing propaganda, right? So I don't bother. I'm not watching. I'm not going to watch CNN or any of them. I'm not getting my information from there. I'd rather just not know, right?
Yeah,
So other
yes,
than what you hear from people, but when I got out, I was. It is crazy how quickly we are declining.
it is insane what we're watching in this world. I would have never thought that this would have been the case. And this is the
Yeah.
problem that we're having is that are, we need to do something about this country. We can't exist anymore if this continues the way that it does. Um,
No.
so
Well,
so go ahead.
the most important thing is we need to bring God back into everything, and that's if you think about it, when we were kids, we said the Lord's Prayer every morning in school. You can't even talk about God in school anymore. It's uh, God was there was a little bit of God in everything, but there definitely isn't anymore. It's kind of taboo. Well, as you know, C9, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Romans, they're looking to put a kibosh on, which is absolutely crazy.
This is insane. We're going to take a short break, a short commercial break. We'll be right back, but we need to talk about that because this is one of the root causes of our problem. So we'll be right back in a minute.
Hello friends, my name is Keisha and I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. And I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. My trafficking began in Saskatchewan, moved into Alberta, and even crossed into the United States. I was stalked, hunted, and ignored by the very systems over the last 5 years that were meant to protect me. This is why, with my father Dale Richardson, we started the Caris Project. This is an Indigenous, survivor-led movement for humanity dedicated to exposing trafficking. government corruption, and holding institutions accountable. One of the most powerful tools that we are using is the petitions for redress of grievances. These are lawful constitutional actions rooted in Canadian and U.S. law, and in treaties that tie us together across provinces, across states, and even across borders. These petitions are precedent-setting. They create a binding record. They demand accountability while representing reconciliation in action. Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working side by side to preserve liberty for all. But we cannot do this alone. We need your help to keep this movement alive, to raise awareness and to build a legacy of justice for Indigenous women, for trafficking survivors, and for families everywhere. Thank you. Please stand with us. Your support makes this work possible. Together we can restore justice, heal families, and defend freedom. And I will close with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. And men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Thank you.
So everybody who wants to support the CARES project, you saw the QR codes and so forth. There's an action plan because we have a petition that we filed in Alberta. We did it in Saskatchewan. We did it in Colorado, Texas, Michigan, and Arizona, and we'll be doing some other states shortly as well. We want people to get justice, and you can also support Get My Pillow. You can go call 1-800-845-2942. And if you're watching on Rumble, Vocal, or Facebook, you will see links in the description. We've got merchandise and other products you can support, or if you want to donate, feel free, because we want to teach people to assert their God-given rights and to exercise them to hold the government accountable. Because the one place that we have the most power is in the legislative branch. Because when the court system is breaking down and there's a structural problem with it, because there's no mechanism to restrain bad judges, there's no mechanism to restrain the RCMP, because if you got a problem in Alberta, you got to call Ottawa. Well, wrong. The Constitution says that Alberta is supposed to have complete control over the administration of justice. And the only thing they get to do is appoint judges and write laws, the criminal code. So why can't you restrain them in Alberta? You can't. That means the RCMP Act has no force according to the Constitution, and we literally have the brown shirt. We need to stop this nonsense. And the government, the people in Edmonton, they're the ones responsible to deal with it. So when Danielle Smith was like, oh, we can't do anything about it, wrong. That's not what the Constitution says. Too bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I actually just sent her a big email the other day. We'll see if she responds. I am willing to bet she doesn't.
Well, we don't care if she doesn't or doesn't, because the petitions that I dealt with, they're connected actually because James Sowery threw in, and I did this as well, threw in Tony's information into one of the criminal complaints that we put in with the RCMP, because I said that this is crime. What these guys are doing is crime. My sister used to work for the RCMP, and she was like, these men need to be arrested. And when she's walking, she's like, I was ashamed that I ever worked for them.
On some of the things that we've experienced, and the willingness of these people are it's absolutely frightening. Because as you know, once you're in there, you're helpless. You need other people to help you do anything, and having that helpless feeling is not a good feeling. So just an example. I mean, they took our phones and they gave us phone reports in our disclosure, and I looked at my phone report and I knew instantly something was going on with my phone. And I started hounding my lawyer saying, get my phone, get my phone. I know my phone didn't look like this. No, my phone didn't look like this. Well, the RCMP gave any of the other guys' phones that I requested them, but they wouldn't give me mine. And then December 2023, we went to court. We to get the phone, we were awarded the phone. The Crown prosecutors forwarded it to us a couple months later. We get it, open it up. Well, we can't open it up. I send it to my brother, who's really good with computers. He says, "Well, you need phone forensic software to open this."
What?
So yeah, you have to have phone forensic software to open up this copy that they gave you of your phone. And so we go back to court. We get awarded it. We get it 3 weeks before trial. Well, we now, what they've had almost 3 years to go through, we now have 3 weeks. So but I knew something was wrong as soon as I opened it up, and I said, we got to find a forensics. So we ended up sending it off to to New York. In New York, one of the guys that did almost all of the 9/11 forensics actually did the Tony Hernandez murder forensics. Anyways, so we get a report back, and they had done. I was the only one of the 4 that they did 2 search warrants on because they couldn't find anything. Right? So they went back further in my phone than anybody else. But we end up finding out that they also erased 21 gigabytes of data off my phone. So when we put the RCMP phone forensic guy on the stand, and we first asked him, how much is 21 gigabytes of data? We asked him to have the 2 reports, and he got so nervous he didn't know what to say. He's like, I don't have the second report. And then we had a quick break, and he came back and he magically had it. But when we asked him how much 21 gigabytes of data was, he said that if he was to print it off on paper, it would be as high as 21 CN towers. So my phone was missing 21 CN towers of data. Yeah, it definitely looked a little different.
Well, yes.
But I knew it. I knew it from the start, right? Because they needed to find a way. My original lawyer who was appointed to me, I ended up firing him early because I was paranoid. I didn't know what was going on. I'm trying to figure out, like, how am I in jail? Why am I still in jail? So I ended up firing him and getting a different lawyer, but I ended up getting his bail hearing, and in there, the Crown basically conceded they had no evidence on me. But as soon as I fired that lawyer, all of a sudden we got new RCMP notes, which I think I did supply to you, where the notes completely changed. It went from me not being involved to me being involved in conversation. And it's not that the conversations were terrible, but it's just, the fact that all of a sudden I went from being involved and then not involved, or not involved and then involved in conversations. Right? Because
Yeah.
they're trying to tie any little thing to me because they knew they had nothing.
When I got arrested, and I had a family matter going the same day, it was kind of funny that they said that my ex-wife's lawyer said that there were no charges, but there may be some coming. And when I got my electronics back, because they tried to act like they didn't have it and I reported it stolen, but I have a video of the arrest, and you could see the police officer taking some of my stuff, and then he photographs the stuff, and then I have a video of them bringing it back to me and said that they reported it stolen in the occurrence reports, but I have the video from that day with the watch commander and everybody else that was there, and they said that I called them and they didn't get any answers. So I'm like, yeah, you're lying, right? But when I got my laptop and so forth, I never opened this up, and I was a heavy duty mechanic for 13 years. I understand when you take a screw out that's never been taken out, and you could tell when they be put back in. And I was like,
Yep.
someone was in here,
Yep.
right? I knew right away, and so I knew that they probably cloned my drives and everything because they want my information. And every time they tried to arrest me, they tried to take all of my technology because I was just recording everything interaction that I had with the police because I don't trust them. After
Yeah.
what
I
happened,
don't blame you.
I don't trust them because not everyone is bad, but there's enough corruption and so forth that I don't know who I'm getting.
the ones that are bad, like I said earlier, the ones that are bad, they're the ones that go up the ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of what they're willing to do. So the lady's house where the arrests happened, where the trailers were checked and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
she had started a recording when the police came there. And the recording wasn't clear enough to play it in court. But on that recording, you have one of the police officers saying to another police officer that he just left a shady fucking attachment because of the shady shit they were doing. And now he finds himself here in Coutts doing shady shit again. So, right on the recording. So we have pictures, and we're going through in trial, and they're staging pictures to look like certain things. And you've got cops in the background eating pizza. My lawyer's like, we're in an active crime scene, apparently. And you've got police officers sitting around here staging things, eating pizza and everything around the crime scene. She's like, what is up with this? Like, this is not normal. And it's just like that picture you were talking about. There was a gentleman that was a Toronto City police officer, but he was an internal investigator who paid a lot of attention to our stuff, who said
Yes.
those kind of things don't happen hours after arrests because you have to tag everything and go through everything to see if there's any DNA on anything. He says
Yes.
now everything's you can't even, if you did find DNA, you couldn't say, well, because it could have come from anywhere now because you've gone
Yes.
and you've staged a picture,
Yes.
right?
You
So how do you
can.
tie anything to anything now? Because now it's no longer legit.
It's just
Basically, is what he's saying.
it's propaganda. I did a lot of work with a lot of the J6ers in the United States, and I looked at a fair amount of the charging documents, and it was like a child wrote them. I looked at, for example, I even looked at what James Sowery's case. They don't even have somebody signing to swear in the information in his case. That's
Wow.
that that's that's not even evidence.
No, it's crazy. Our case, 99% of it are allegations against Mr. Olenek. Um, these undercover cops were with Tony for 6 days, and they're alleging that he said some stupid things, nothing that would warrant a conspiracy to commit murder on RCMP charge, but they allege he said some stupid things. But for 6 days they're with him, and they never have a wiretap put on. They don't have a wire on them to record these things. Little suspicious, right? After day one, it's a little okay. Maybe it's bravado. Day two, it's a little concerning. Maybe we better wire up. Day three, we are wiring up, right? But nope, they didn't.
They did
Bullshit.
so they just basically fabricated stuff and said
Yeah,
he said this.
exactly. Or so there was the one thing they said that he said that he would slit the RCMP throat. And so I asked Tony inside jail. I said, well, so what was what was that? He said what he said to the girls is if the RCMP came in here heavy-handed and started arresting people with families and everything, they would slit their own throats. Well, that's a little different than what they're saying, that he's going to slit RCMP's throats, right? And that's that's not even bravado. That's just use it. That's what do you call that? That's a euphemism, maybe is what the word. You're
Yes,
just
you're basically saying they're destroying their own selves by doing that. It's
yeah, it's not going to look good, right? You
yes,
come in, you're coming in on a bunch of families and stuff like that. It's not going to look good on them, right? So this is
yeah.
what they do, though.
It, this I this you know what this looks like, and you saw this happening in the States. What you're seeing, what happened in Ottawa, what happened here at Cruz. This is like a stage of a color revolution. When you're going into and install an illegitimate government, and people are going and saying we don't want what you're selling, then you start framing people in order to and then punish them publicly to stop people from resisting and coming forward. This is what it's designed to do, because they didn't come in
Absolutely.
and conduct proper investigation. They came in here, put these pictures out so that it would trigger an emotional response from people, being like, look at all these guns that these
Absolutely.
four
Guilty,
guys had,
guilty.
right?
Yeah, guilty, guilty, guilty.
That's because that's what they did. This is clearly what they did, because you have to follow a
Wow.
chain of custody in order to properly get evidence to try things.
Yeah, they did that stuff. They also said that we were white supremacists. Well, Mr. Olienick isn't white, number one.
I
Um,
know, I know.
right? So, and was staying in my trailer. My children are part Native too, by the way. They also said we were part of a, like I said, terrorist organization. So they crucified us before we even got to court. But the jury didn't buy it. Right? I remember talking on the stand and my peripheral looking at the jury and having them agreeing and smiling and giggling and stuff. Like they weren't stupid. They, like I was telling you before the show, we got the one charge. They gave us, like my lawyer had said, oh, no matter what, you're done, you're getting out. And, but I was still mad that the charge even come through. But anyways, on our way from Lethbridge to Drumheller, we had a stopover in Calgary, as I was just telling you. And when I said my name, and we had to go give DNA because that's part of the charge, the Calgary City police officer looked up at me and he said, I am so sorry for what you're going through. And so, you've even got police officers that were saying it. We had all the sheriffs inside the courthouse. All
Yes.
were shaking their heads. One of them quit. He spent his entire life working at the courthouse. He said after our case, he couldn't handle it anymore. He said, so apparently he quit because of our case. The sheriffs were so good to us there. When everything was done, the last time they dropped us off, they all shook our hands, gave me a hug, all that kind of stuff. I've been to the courthouse since. They're all happy to see me, and we all sit around and and bullshit and stuff. So, you know, if these fellow police officers really believed what the allegations were, we wouldn't have had a relationship like that, right? I mean, they you're supposed to stay chained up also when you're in custody, right? Even when you're in court, you're supposed to have your hand shackles on and your leg shackles on. But they let us not have them because they trusted us.
It,
So,
it,
I
it,
mean, it speaks mountains.
like the way I look at it is this, and I tell people this. I said, I don't care if somebody was a criminal. If you're going to try a case, does the evidence say they committed the crime? Right?
Right?
That's what matters. Because they're like, oh, he's a criminal. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. But did he commit this crime? Because
Yeah.
it's easy to make somebody a criminal, and once the people hear criminal, they shut their brains off and just say this is literally how they were able to perfect this system that they're using on you guys and everybody else now. Because I know a guy, a friend of mine, he's a crown attorney, and he told me, he said, if you understood how many innocent people are in prison, your head would spin.
Oh yeah.
They've been doing
Um.
this for a very long time.
Well, and like I said earlier, it became a cover up for their crimes too.
Yes.
So, and it's pro their willingness to, because they were looking to put us away for life, right?
For what?
21 years. They were asking 21 years.
For what?
20, exactly. So for something they knew that didn't happen, and something they knew because they're trying to cover up their crap. Like, well, look, these guys are criminals. No, that's what I mean. It's a scary system. 21 years, full-time single dad, right? They wanted to put me away for 21 years, and knowing I did nothing, right? Had to erase data off my phone, had to, so they could try and make messages look a certain way, and this, and
Like,
they're gross.
this is a lot of crime. A lot of crime. And
Wow.
putting you away as a single father, what is that going to do to your children? This is
Well, just right.
it, like, I mean, I look at it this way. My youngest daughter, she's gonna be 7 on Monday. I haven't seen her for 5.5 years because of
No, I'm sorry.
they have done irreparable harm, and they
For
allowed
sure.
somebody to do something because both me and my daughter were tortured. you cannot do this. And she obviously didn't have the power to do it by herself. She had a lot of help. She did something she knew was wrong. And then the state used that as an opportunity to destroy me because they didn't like what I had to say. Regardless of the situation, they are destroying a child. Like they did this, your children, they lost 3 years of their lives and they've damaged your children irreparably. They need to pay for this.
And just the time I lost. So when I went in, he was 9 years old, and I could still cuddle with him at the time, right? And then when I get out, he's now 13 years old and has arm hair. I can't cuddle with him anymore,
You
right?
missed all that.
So I missed all of that because and I got custody of my son when he was 9 months old. Pretty much I raised him by myself from birth, but got official custody at 9 months old. I raised that boy all by myself. And and the bond I had with that boy, right? And just to lose those years, you can never get them back. You know that. You've been through it.
I mean,
and that's the worst of it all.
Like I understand because my oldest daughter, I raised her as a single father. Like I had child and family services take her without provocation. I lost all parental rights, and then I got her back because I was like, not today, Satan. Like wrong person to take their kid, right? I'm not the guy that'll throw the chair across you. I'll find a way to burn you. I'll figure it out. Use my brain instead of my fists. But the fact of the matter is that is so evil. That is so evil what they're doing because it's bad enough what they did to you, but when they take the parent away from the child, nobody's talking about what's happening to the kid because what did the kid do? He did nothing, and now they're punishing you for something you didn't do, but are also punishing your child.
Well, no bail, right? Like how do me and those 4 men not get bail that are not criminals, do not have, and then I'm in jail with people who are in on their second murder, and then I watch them walk out on bail. Like,
they're letting pedophiles on the street.
Pedophiles. It's and pedophiles that get charged, come in, get out, get charged again, come in, get out. It's and I had to sit there. We were supposed to have a trial in June of 2023. While the Crown played so many games, we didn't even get pre-trial started by then. So that Senate got delayed another year. So we were in Canada. We have the Jordan Act, where they have to try you before 30 months. Well, they had us tried just before the end of the Jordan Act, right? So they held us as long as they could, like just disgusting things, right? Crown played so many games, kept withholding information. That's how we ended up getting that inadvertent disclosure act, where our lawyers found the crimes that the Crown committed and the RCMP. Because our lawyers knew they weren't giving us all the evidence. They could tell because of their experience that stuff was missing. They hadn't given everything. So we spent 3 weeks in disclosure applications. Well, do you know how much 3 weeks of lawyer bills are? It's disgusting.
Oh yes. Oh yes. We're gonna take a short break here because we're running up on time on this segment. We'll come back on the other side because I got to get into the court stuff because I want people to understand what this court system is like in Canada, especially the people watching in the States, because you think that we have a comparable court system to what you guys have in the States. You guys think your court system is corrupt? You haven't seen nothing until you come to Canada. This thing is absolutely atrocious. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Go relieve yourself, do whatever, but we will be back because this we need to get through this. So I'll roll through some stuff here, and then we'll be back in a couple of minutes. All right.
What starts here changes the world. I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day, your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Yeah, I like that intro because this speech, everybody should go and watch it because we are literally in a war right now. and we need to start being disciplined. And some of the stuff that he says makes a lot of sense because he goes
Yep.
through and he talks about the 10 things that he went through to go through SEALs training. And we're basically going through a massive, like, it's training camp on boot camp on steroids, right?
Yeah. I mean, and once you see it, it's hard not to see it, right? It's you know, yeah, it became very clear to me what was going on in this world. Um, after when COVID came, I knew for sure that I wasn't wrong. You know, I had been watching things for a few years before that, but once COVID came in, it was just, yep, I'm on the right side. I know I'm seeing things right.
Yeah. So I talked to some of the girls there that were helping you guys with the courting out the lawyers and stuff like that. So I, we heard about the envelope and some of the stuff that was going on, and just the shenanigans that were being pulled. Like it was like there was no due process, right? There was
Nope.
no right to defense. The goalposts were moving consistently. So
The Crown kept doing things like dropping 6,000 pages of evidence on our lawyers a day before a pretrial or something like that. Well, how does a lawyer effectively do their job when they've got 6,000 pages to go through in one night? It doesn't work, right? So that kind of stuff was constantly happening. Withholding information, as you know, um, constant games by the Crown. You know, like I told you, the saying that the one officer will be there, and then all of a sudden, magically, when the last officer said something that he shouldn't have, well, all of a sudden, oh, that the officer's not on the way; she's actually behind. Yeah, right. You need to walk her through everything. Then we have the one they were going to bring a guy on the stand that wasn't actually there. Then we have another guy testify on there because so February 2nd, we saw a bunch of officers and a tech truck around the cell phone tower right outside of Coutts. So we were telling everybody, like, oh, they're tapping the phones. They're tapping the phones. So I ended up, me and a whack of other people ended up putting on our hunting binocular cases. So you have binocular cases sit on the front of your chest, and then they go around the back of you and everything, so that they're stable and that they don't drag on your neck and everything like that. Well, they put this officer Tulloch on the stand in the Coutts 3 um, um, trial, and he talked about this, and he said that, well, we saw lots of people with bags on their chests that we thought were radios. Well, even if they were radios, he's straight up lying. He knows they're binoculars. He's not a stupid man. But then he comes on the stand on ours and says that they were handgun holders. Well, if they were for handguns, which would have been illegal, you would have arrested us, So, but this guy goes on the stand in our trial. Our lawyers are like, we've got him, we've got him lying, because he's had this and this trial and everything like that. But he's on the stand one day, and then he says, well, I've got vacation starting tomorrow. Goes, leaves for 2 weeks. Well, but in that time, the Crown caught it too, obviously, right? And then when he comes back on the stand 2 weeks later, he's like, oh, I meant that, because my lawyer brings up the fact that he said that they were radios in the other trial. And he's like, oh, I meant on the shoulder part. And just like, and he says this with a smile on his face. And I'm just like, holy cow, man. You're so arrogant that you smile while you're saying that. Like, just disgusting human beings.
well,
Oh, um,
this is insane that they actually would do this and call this a court hearing, because this is not a
Dale,
court hearing.
some of the stuff, man. We could go on for days on some of the stuff that went on in our case. It's just mind boggling. Um, it was stressful, obviously. You know, but
Did you guys ever
I got
find
lucky with my lawyer.
Did you guys ever find out what happened? What was inside of that envelope that they were talking about?
So I don't know exactly. They're not allowed to tell us because that judge decided to turn a blind eye and say that it was client solicitor privilege, right? Because it's information between the Crown and the RCMP. So I can tell you what they were saying in court and stuff is that it was unlawful legal advice. So basically, in a nutshell, I've pieced things together from reading transcripts and all that kind of stuff, right? Is that the Crown told the RCMP to go a certain direction. Then I think it was 7 minutes later, he called them back, said, no, don't do this, withhold information from the judge and lie to the judge. And so I can't tell you exactly what was said, but I know that that's what it is that he has given unlawful legal advice, or they did, and lied to the judge to get a
How
search warrant.
how is it client solicitor privilege when the
Exactly.
Crown is not representing the RCMP?
That's what so if you read the transcripts too, that's what the lawyers are saying because the judge is trying to use comparison from other cases. And Tony Rolston at the time, that was Tony's lawyer at the time, was going, Mr. Judge, you're not quite listening. And I'm paraphrasing for it. You're not quite listening. In this case, you have the lawyer say, or the RCMP note saying something up top here. Then you have vetted out black stuff. And then you have stuff underneath. You can assume what's in the middle by what's said up here and what's said down below. It's pretty relevant, right? And she says, but in this case, we're telling you we've seen the whole thing, and we're telling you that it's a crime. We're telling you what they've done, right? They called it crime fraud, is what they were calling it.
If you go back and start looking at case law, the way case law is being used now is not the
It's a
way
weapon.
case law is actually designed to be. Case law is just before they used to use it to make sure like a history of decisions by applying the law. And when you properly apply the law, you'll see a consistent, well, this judge agreed with it because they did this, this, and this. And in all those cases, they did the same thing. But this is not what they're doing. They're creating all of these different legal tests and so forth because this solicitor crime privilege exists between a client and a solicitor. So you retain that lawyer. It's not like you were suing the RCMP. The RCMP were doing their function in the administration of justice. They are not a client of the they're not a client for the Crown. The Crown is representing the interests of the people. So what the Crown is doing, and the judge was just doing, was making something up to allow them to do this. But judges don't have the capacity to do this. What he did was created a legal shield where there's none that exists. He doesn't have the authority to do this. And this is specifically why we went to the government to deal with this, because the administration of justice, the courts do not have the inherent authority to create law. They don't have the authority to create legal shields where the law does not provide any. And they are using a lot of these mental gymnastics in citing case law. I don't give a damn what case law says, because if it doesn't agree with the law or the Constitution, case law can't create it. It can't.
That's right. Well, in our case, there with so in our case, it's known to the public as the envelope. Because the envelope was sealed with the information in it, so that's what everybody knows it as. But the reason that envelope is sealed is because it would be another national scandal if it came out. So I have been talking to a lawyer. I'm not going to name this person right now. Who was part of just winning the appeal for the Emergencies Act here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So we've now won twice, proving that it was unconstitutional. Anyways, this person said to me that this envelope of ours is so important because it really has to do with everything in Canada that has happened from the protests, from the Freedom Convoy, because they used it to do what they did to us, which they then invoked the Emergencies Act and did everything to everybody else.
You know who has the
Right?
power
So
to get that? You know who has the power to get that envelope right now?
we have this. It was part of our appeal. Both lawyers think we have won, as we should, but they think that they'll go a different route to not to avoid having to open it, because it is going to be so big. It'll be a scandal with the Crown inside the judicial system, and it'll be another RCMP scandal.
But do you know who has the power to get that envelope right now? The executive branch.
Danielson.
The Attorney General and Danielle Smith can get that right now. You know why? Because the Legislative Assembly is responsible for the administration of the justice, and that includes the operation of courts. When the administration of justice isn't functioning, they don't have the power to do that. A judge cannot shield criminal activity
Well, that's
and
exactly what
say that it's
done.
client solicitor privilege. They cannot.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the way that it's designed to be. And the Crown has to act within the interests of the public. And that means that they do not shield criminal activity, even within their own office.
Well, like I was saying earlier, this Crown never should have been part of the case. If they're physically out in Coutts, an active part of the investigation, which I can prove, someone came forward, but they were too scared to go to court. That puts them there. They cannot be the Crowns that are trying the case. But by the time my lawyer got involved, that I went through the trial with and everything like that, she's like, I can't change anything. You've had two lawyers that were way more senior than me that should have had these Crowns booted out. Right? There's so much with our case. It's mind-boggling.
We'll talk after this, hang out after this, because something crossed my mind, because this has to get dealt with. And what they're doing, yes, even if the court does something, the problem is in this country is that we have a structural issue with the court. There is not the control systems for the courts and the law enforcement are not enough. This is why there is corruption that we're seeing in this way, because there is weak controls. A judge pretty much can do whatever they want. Like, I actually asked a police officer and said, if the judge pulled out a gun and shot somebody, what are you going to not arrest them? And they tried to avoid the question because they don't want to prosecute judges that are on the bench. But judges can use the bench to commit crimes. And I've watched this happen over and over and over again. No one is above the law.
It's a big problem with our system, period. And this is if there's any advice I could ever give people, if you're going through something major, our system is so small that these lawyers are worried that, if they do something in this case, then that judge isn't going to be good on the next case, or, and it just keeps going because the legal community is so small. So my advice to anybody is if you have something that's, a big case, is if your case, let's say hypothetically, is in Alberta, get a lawyer from Ontario or something to come in and battle it, because they're never going to deal with those judges again. And they're not worried about that. So, or really do your due diligence and make sure you find a lawyer that doesn't care. It's there are some really good lawyers out there that are about the that they want justice to be served properly, right? So Tony and I ended up actually hiring a retired lawyer to look at our stuff. He was from Alberta, but he moved out to the island, and he said to us when we were introduced to him that he could tell something was wrong just from reading the media reports, and we sent him the transcripts And within 2 hours, he had already found a whack of stuff. He's like, this isn't how the law goes. This isn't how the law goes. This isn't how that in the judge's charge to the jury on how he's telling them to make their decisions, right? So, this guy said to me, he said, I don't think like you politically. I don't agree with what you guys went out there to do and everything like that. But he says, I care about our system. And he says, what's going on is absolute criminal. So
Oh
I would like
yes.
to, yeah, I would like to share more about this man because he has introduced me to some pretty powerful people. But I don't want to give, because there's no doubt they're going to be watching this episode, and I don't want to give them any heads up.
Yeah. But
So,
the other thing that you have to that people need to understand is the bar, the law society. The law
yeah,
societies are heavily controlled, and then judges, like each judge, each us what is it, chief justice sits on the
yep,
judges council in the Canadian Judicial Council, which they
yep,
need to change that because the judges should not be policing themselves. That is the fox guarding the hen house. Like, why would you do
absolutely.
that? Why would you do that? Like, you can't do that. They have to have a completely independent body, and they should have it not just legal professionals, but they need to just have regular, everyday people and rotate these people in and out because it needs to be completely separate so that they can sit down. Because if the average person cannot see the justice of a judge, then you shouldn't be a judge, right?
That's right.
And
Absolutely. Uh, there's so many things in our system that need to be corrected, though, Dale. I mean, anywhere from legal aid to, like you're saying, the judges and stuff. Like, to me, there's a conflict. So the judges involved in our bail hearings, they're all ex-partners in law firms. Like, how does that happen? All liberal donors. All of our judges, all liberal donors. One of them ran for the Liberal Party. Um, and let's face it, the people, us people that were out in Coutts and stuff like that, weren't known as liberals,
yeah,
right?
I faced a lot of
So
Trudeau appointed judges. I'm not going to lie, they were the
from the last number I heard, and now how, if it's, whether it's 75 or 77, but I know it's in the mid 70s for sure. There's 77% was the last I had heard were liberal appointed judges in Canada. 77%. So it's and politics are just too heavily involved in everything in our world these days. So to me, that's a problem. It's a major problem.
yes. And this, like, this whole thing about like what they were doing with the Emergency Measures Act and using that as justification, this is a setup. This is
Well,
100% when you,
that's what they set us up. Yeah, to put it in. They needed to find. So it's. I actually have, if inside my disclosure, I have a copy of my phone, and I remembered there was an alleged email that came out of the PMO's office that was sent to the Ottawa Police and another office I can't remember, but anyways, basically saying that there was a plan to send people out into the Ottawa, to Coutts and stuff like that to agitate and stuff like that, but basically to do exactly what they did to us, right? To go out there and set people up, and that this person was worried. So
I'm
I don't find it a coincidence that I had this email that was being shared around everywhere through freedom communities, and then exactly what it said happened.
yeah, I mean, I've watched some emails. Like, look at Jeff Colvin. He got an email. They accidentally sent him an email of them conspiring to frame him for crimes, right? And they're
Mhm.
communicating with Ottawa to do this, right? Like,
Yep.
this, this is what this is the thing that we're living in. I'll tell people right now. Go read the book, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radical. This man did. He was a left leaning, like, Obama was like, love this guy. He he talks about doing propaganda techniques on how to destroy your enemy and so forth, and then watch what the media does to the people that are targeted by the government. and you
Mm-hmm.
will see the same thing. You watch this going on social media and everything else like this. This is a propaganda machine, and this, like I said,
For sure.
go look at color revolutions, and you will see all of these elements here being played out. And your case is absolutely evidence of this. This is like one of them. This is like a show trial in communist China. You went against the
Well, the
regime.
Canadian Army actually came out too in I think it was the end of 2021 saying that they were using this kind of propaganda on Canadians during COVID because they were testing it for war because they use the same thing in wars in other countries. They'll rent radio time and blah 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 blah. So, but why you're the most apparent deadly and stressful time in the world's history, or in recent history, and you're testing propaganda on your people? What's going
I
on,
know.
guys?
Well, first of all, you shouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't happen, but it doesn't surprise me. Like they were doing MK
No,
Ultra here, right? Like I mean, this is
I mean,
common knowledge. Like what they did in McGill,
that's what it was,
right? Like
right?
Canada just we've got a disgusting history of doing bad things to our people and brushing it under the rug. Oh, nothing to see here, right? And now it's
Absolutely.
just widespread. So, kind of going back to the case here, with so when you mentioned that they would drop 6,000 pages of evidence on your lawyers,
Did this all the time.
this was to drive the costs through the roof. Because how much did you guys
Oh,
end
they
up
did a good
spending?
job of it.
How much do you guys end up spending on lawyers for your case?
So I don't know exactly where I'm at. My lawyer eventually let me go to legal aid. That's my criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
Eventually let me go to legal aid. But I'm probably I'm gonna guess the 700 to above, seven or above $100,000, and then of course I've got my civil lawyer too. So um, plus everything, you factor everything, what your business lost and everything else, right? I mean, I went from having a pretty good life to I'm now working for someone scraping by. So
Well, I mean,
uh,
I,
I've
I
been
get,
I've been blessed by the good Lord. I've got some good people helping me here and there as I'm going along. So
I get it. Like, I mean, one day I lost my house, I lost my kid, I lost everything, cut off from everything, my
yep,
business destroyed, and I've never
yep,
recovered. Right? Like, and you know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for my family, I'd be homeless. Right?
yep.
This is the world that we're living in, and like
Yep.
$700,000, and they still gave you 6.5 years in prison. Like,
And
come on.
with my civil, I know with my civil claim in the December 23rd, I got a letter from my civil lawyer telling me that the RCMP lawyer is intentionally trying to wipe me out of money. I have it in the lawyer's letterhead and everything, telling me that they're trying to intentionally wipe me out of money so that I can't continue to fight.
The funny thing is,
So dirty.
when I was going to court against these, they were begging me not to file any more documents because I would file motions with 5,000 pages of evidence showing all of these things for them to stop doing these things, and they wouldn't
Yep.
do something, and I would appeal everything because you're committing crimes. Like the judge would just write something off, and then they'd have to go and bill their customers every time I did this. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like in the province of Saskatchewan, in a family case in some appeal courts, 672,000 pages of evidence and a 100% failure rate. In
Wow.
in 2001, I sent a 15-page letter to Child and Family Services, to a minister's office, CBC, and a few other people, and they all knew who got it, and they gave back my kid from being a permanent ward of the state. And then
Yep.
672,000 pages of evidence and a 100% failure rate? Are you kidding me? And then the
Right.
legal costs. How did you pay for that? Right? Who's paying for
Right.
this? There were private people. That's a lot of money. Like just
Yep.
on cost of processing papers, I did it just using what they charged me, say when I wanted a FOIA request, $6.7 million worth of legal fees, and that's just processing at a low rate. Where you get the money? Who's paying for that, right? And
Yeah,
this
it's quite the system.
this is what they were doing to you. So what? So when you guys ended up getting to, like, after all of that stuff, let's talk about some of the conditions that you were at in remand. What happened while you guys were?
So, well, remand isn't the nicest of places, that's for sure. I would definitely go to federal penitentiary way before remand. You've got tiny meals. I mean, if you think about anybody that has a kid or had children, if you think about what you would serve your 6-year-old, you'd serve up, put on their plates. That's about how much you got fed every day for each
Mm-hmm.
meal. When we first got there, it was still COVID restrictions. Tony and I were only let out for 2, I think maybe 3 showers in the first 11 days. We weren't even allowed to leave our cells or anything like that. Remand, you're stuck on a unit all day, other than you can go for 1 hour of what they call outside time, which is in a courtyard with about 30-foot concrete walls, and you never see the sun. And you can go for 1 hour of gym if there's no lockdowns or anything like that. So, but you don't touch nature at all. Tony had some serious health issues that they weren't dealing with. Um, I I was withheld with medication that I needed. I had to finally call a health link number, which the lady told me that after a month and a half of them playing their games, the lady said, I'll have this fixed within an hour, and within an hour they were up at the unit giving me my meds. Um, yeah, solid strip searched. I was strip searched at least 100 times, which, I mean, I played hockey all my life, and you shower with men after every game. And, it's not that, but um, when you have to bend over and pull your cheeks apart, it's degrading, right? I
It
mean,
is.
it's just it's just a horrible feeling, right? That so, but you leave, you go to court, you have to be, when you come back, you have to be strip searched. It's like, well, I never left the presence of a sheriff. So, unless the sheriff's giving me drugs to bring into the jail, hey, what am I supposed to be bringing in? So, so I mean, we had so many days of pretrial. I think we ended up having something like 21 weeks of pretrial, and yeah, and 8 weeks of trial. So 29 weeks, 29 to over at least 29 weeks of court.
Oh,
So,
Jesus.
you know, you do that 3 to 5 times a week. You do the math. You're getting a lot of strip searches, plus your monthly strip searches that they give you on your units. And there's a lot of things about remand that needs to change. The healthcare, and it's not. I think that the people that start working there start to get cynical after a while, because you see the same people over and over. But um, if you're not built for that kind of a job, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You're dealing with, my guess is probably, I would guess, in the high, mid to high 80s of the people there are because of addiction in one form or another, whether it be the addict who has stolen stuff off the street or whatever, or the addict who's selling dope, or the dope dealer or whatever, right? I would say very few people are there because they're not addicts. They're there because they are addicts.
Yes.
And these people tend to get cynical towards the people because they're the same. Well, these are the people that are keeping you employed, right? So,
Yes.
but you have to have compassion still. That's, like nobody is born hoping to be a drug addict, right?
No.
Nobody wants,
But
you know. You need to have some compassion for these people.
they also put them in very bad conditions that's going to agitate them more, and then not feed them properly. If you have
So
people that aren't fed properly, you're going to be pissed off.
yeah, so and then in Lethbridge, when you get out, they drop you off at the homeless shelter. Well, where do you think all the addiction is? Right? It's at the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you've got somebody that's in there because of their addiction. They've, whether they've stolen a car or they've broken into a shed or whatever it is they did. You go and you drop them off. So the first thing they see is drugs. It's crazy.
There's
So
a whole
our
market off
system is
of
broken. There's no doubt about it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say anymore. It's just like we go to the federal penitentiary and um the parole officers there, nothing but flying colors. I got the most amazing report. I've got letters from staff, from amazing letters from various staff out there, and all the parole officers are telling me, Carbert, there's no way you're getting denied. And I said, you don't know our case very well, then. And they said there is no way. And we had a parole hearing on the Friday. All my reports are flying colors. I've got huge support there and everything. And I get denied. I get denied on because I won't admit that I did anything. Well, they knew I was in an active appeal, and they used the fact that the judge used the judge's reasonings behind everything was that he said that we were prepared to go to war with police, even though we were just found not guilty of that. So the parole officers used that, which one of the parole officers was the longest standing chief of police in Saskatchewan history, and the other one was a crown prosecutor. So they said no, I couldn't have parole on the Friday, even after having all these perfect records and all the support from staff. And then on the Monday, the Crown dropped their right to appeal against the conspiracy charge. So everything that they used to say against us, for denying parole, they then dropped on the Monday, basically just telling us we control this, guys, and showing us who still has the power. It's
That,
pretty buggers.
that's really the way it is. And if you look at the way our Canadian system is structured, it was designed to keep the crown in control of the country, right? This is what it's for,
Yeah,
because they say peace and good order and so forth in the British North America Act. They don't really. I don't even get me started. The charter, first of all, Section 1 shouldn't even. It should. It should, because all of these abuses, they're being justified on. But one thing I wanted to say quickly is that with what they were going after and justifying the mandates and so forth was on the orders that Brooke put out. Right, this is what they went after Archer and everybody else for,
yeah,
and they used this. And Brooke personally got involved in my case because I filed my engineering report in as evidence in another case. They could not allow that to stay on the court record because Brooks' order would have had to retroactively be struck down as unconstitutional, because every health authority, like, I mean, I even looked at the report that they put out by the Alberta government. I was like, so where's the engineering control? Why did that get left off? And I talked to Gary Davidson myself, and I told him he just disregarded it. They went ahead and did whatever they did.
of course.
But that was
Yeah,
the biggest failure in the pandemic. But it's not a failure because you the money that was being made, they would have never been able to get to that part if they actually effectively used the engineering. They wouldn't, because
yeah,
that's big.
exactly. It was that's a big part of COVID too, as we know, is transfer of wealth, right? Um,
Yes.
it was a test drive for control. There's so many aspects to COVID. Um, you know, it really was just a great big test run for what's coming. And
Y-
I and I don't, I truly believe that. And I mean, obviously, I don't have any evidence of anything coming, but it's coming. We all know that.
Well, I mean, you just look at quickly. I know we kind of go off topic, but I get back on here. But quickly, with you look at what happened with the Epstein files, where you see the flippant. We were talking about this earlier. The flippant disregard for the law and for anything around. They
Yeah.
just talk about this depraved stuff, and all the people that people were looking up to and expecting to do stuff. They're all part of this. They're all part of this, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and
All these
then
people that they
go
think
ahead.
they're above the law.
Yes, this this is where we need to wake up. And when I was watching it, I hope that people would have seen more attention on this to realize what was going on, because they're rubbing it in their faces when they were putting you guys and trying you publicly. They're like, we're lying through our teeth, we're making an example, and we're like moving us into communism. And here it is.
Guilty before proven innocent.
And then the how many people lined up and were screaming that you guys were guilty, and then you had the propaganda machine of the mainstream media here that were just labeling you guys as
So
terrorists.
I will tell you what I've experienced with the media. So number one, they were nowhere to be found in the pre-trial. Big surprise, right? Because the real evidence was coming out. And then during the trial, so every day after trial, I would go back and the guys would have the newspaper waiting for me because it would be the day before his trial. And every single day, that stinking the reporters would talk about what the Crown talked about, but nothing that the defense countered. It's all what the Crown was saying. It's so disgusting what these people are willing to do too. The media, they're a problem.
Well, yes, and when you're looking at this, and even though you don't have all of the definitive proof, the actions look like that they are following a specific narrative. This is when you would
Oh
see
yeah.
all of these inconsistencies. This is where you would have reasonable grounds to start an investigation. The problem is the administration of justice is the ones that are also compromised and the ones that are responsible to investigate. This is
Yeah.
where we're having a problem. People are like going through the court. The Canadian court system is so grotesque. Okay,
Yeah.
it took it normally takes people like 10 years to get to the Supreme Court of Canada. This is how slow our legal system is. I was able to get to the Supreme
It's
Court of
crazy.
Canada in 6 months, which is
I yeah,
it's
I'll take things all the way to the Supreme Court if it, for some reason our Alberta appeal court don't do what they should do. I have to have faith that our case is so clear that they can't ignore it. I mean, our judge and our crowns, as we know, were handpicked for our case. Like, Judge David Lebrenz, who tried our case,
yes,
um, he was a crown prosecutor for the other conspiracy um, with the RCMP that was in Mayerthorpe. He was part of the Mayerthorpe case. He was the crown prosecutor that prosecuted for that case. So that
really,
somehow became the judge in our case. Um, what he is the biggest criminal of them all, and the reason I say that is um, we know the crown prosecutors committed crimes. We know that, but that judge saw the evidence. He agreed to look at the evidence, saying, and again paraphrasing, because of considering the caliber of lawyers that these men have, I have to believe what my colleagues are saying. So he looks at this evidence, then turns a blind eye. Maybe Ottawa got to him, who knows? But he had the power to say, no, this isn't going to happen in Canada. And he didn't. So to me, he's the biggest criminal of them all.
yes, and this is why there's has to be more effective controls on judges. Judges, because of the position and the power that they have to restrain or to allow things to go a certain way, they have to
Yeah,
have the most stringent controls on the judges. Now, if somebody
for sure.
loses something, didn't prove their case, should they go after a judge? No. But when you can look down and see that there was a gross breakdown like this, the judge should be investigated criminally. He should
Well,
be.
when when he was giving his reasons for his decision, he basically said that that it was political. You know, basically he couldn't let this happen again. He couldn't let you know what? One day I'll come back on the show and I'll go through the transcripts when I got some time and I'll start reading you some of the stuff that this guy says. It just we can't let this happen inside of our system and blah blah blah. It was just it just is so clear um, that he was being directed. So clear, right? And that they didn't like our views, and that's a scary part too, right? Is that they were okay with putting us away for 21 years, like I said earlier, because our political views differ. That's scary.
You have to sit down and start thinking about this because, and I'm talking for the viewers, you need to sit down and seriously consider what's going on. They were in Canada, life in prison is 25 years. So they were like giving you almost a life sentence to protect what they were doing. People who
Which
do this
they were
is
asking for the life tag too, so that there's a difference in Canada too, right? A life tag is different. So you can do over 25 years if you're given the 25 years. If the system doesn't feel you're ready to be left out, if you have that life tag, and they were looking to give us that life tag,
so that you would
so
have never gotten out of that. They would have never let you out of
never
prison.
would have
You would
ever
have,
gotten out ever.
that is that is so corrupt what they're doing because they're willing to destroy innocent people for the
That don't think
protection.
like that.
Okay, this is what people have to fundamentally understand. Our government is not our government. Sure, there's some people that want to do some things in there. Yes. Most of them are either too weak, which is ineffective, or they're corrupt, right? Like, it's
They're
really
being
all there is
lobbied
to
or
it.
something.
So if you're corrupt and you're willingly corrupt, like, I mean, you're essentially a organized crime. And this people have to understand. It doesn't matter that they're wearing suits and that they're clean cut. They're no different than those gangbangers that you see on the street
Oh,
corners. They're no different. They're same mentality. They're worse because they're trading away your country and your life for their filth. And this is what people have to understand. This is not a government. This is criminals, an
they're the
organized
ones that
crime.
we're supposed to be depending on, right? We're supposed to be, look to them for protection, to be putting away the bad people. They are the bad people. Not, I don't want to say all of them because there are still some. When we were in Coutts, I sat at. They had various checkpoints in Coutts.
Yes.
I sat at the checkpoints and talked with RCMP for half hour, 45 minutes. They were wonderful, telling us, okay, we can't, we all go back to the hotels after. We're not allowed to show our support with our uniforms on. But he's like, but I'll tell you, we're all cheering for you back at the hotels, right? So what I'm saying is there's some wonderful people
Of
inside of
course,
our RCMP and our various police detachments, but
of course
there's
there
some
are.
really scary ones too.
I talked to the police that they were like, well, we want to make sure that this gets investigated, but they're like, this is political. They understand that because of who is all involved. And they're getting pressure because the one guy's like, of course we want law and order back. We can't stand this that we go and arrest the guy and then he's back on the street. Right? Like,
So we had the police officer that we put on the stand, or that they put on the stand, I was telling you about, that said he was involved in these conversations with one of the guys that actually wasn't. Well, one of one of the guy's friends actually went in and put in a complaint, brought all the evidence, and the officer promised that he was going to try and do everything. He did try to have it brought forward and everything like this, because what the guy did is he got on the stand and lied, right? And but he said that he's being shut down from the top. told not to do nothing, to leave it alone. So, yeah, we're not getting anywhere with the as I keep saying, our upper echelon is compromised.
And that's the issue. There, we're getting so much top down pressure that the
Yeah,
people there that want to do their jobs cannot, and they're trying to force out the remaining good police officers, and
for
they
sure.
just want to bring in the people that are going to toe the line.
Well, that's what a few of them said out there in Coutts too, is that I didn't want to get the shot, but I had to, because what's going to happen if all of us that don't want to get it end up having losing our jobs? Then we'll have nothing but the crazies in, and straight out of their mouths, right? So
That's that like having to hear that kind of thing is disgusting.
yeah,
That is disgusting. The people who did this and the responsible, they need to go you know what? I mean, ship them off, give them military tribunals, let them get capital punishment.
start with
Like
the
honestly,
Trudeau government, the
like,
PMO's office at the time.
because honestly, I don't I'm not opposed to another country having a military tribunal and trying them, right? Go ahead. Because seriously, most Canadians can't afford to put all these people in prison and pay for it when they can't pay for their own groceries,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's
Like
crazy right now.
this is this is like Nuremberg all over again, but worse. This has to
It's
stop.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, just the only way it's going to stop is if more and more people start to wake up, and honestly, good people have to start getting into politics and not get compromised. Right? That's the big thing. Is I don't know if it's well, we know money quite often is the problem, right? But I don't know if there's also threats too. So because I do believe a lot of people get into politics for the right reasons, but some way or another something happens.
It's like my daughter said in that little thing there. We need men who are not afraid to call sin by its right name. We need people
Right?
like honestly, they don't want Christians around because Christians are going to tell them no. They need people who believe in
Absolutely.
God to deal with the situation because honestly, at the end of the day, those are the ones that are like, so don't threaten me with a good time because I'll be seeing Jesus. Who cares?
That's right.
Right? Like, I mean, I won't have to be living in this tyrannical nonsense being ruled by the devil. Right? This is really where we're at. So,
Well, the next world's going to be a lot better, don't we?
well, exactly. So it's like, I don't care about your money. Money's not going to save me from the fires of hell. When I got to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, that money ain't going to do nothing for me. Sorry, right? And that's really it. We need people with that mentality that are going to say no, that are
Yep.
going to say, no, I don't care what you do to me. I'm not going to turn away from this because we have too many people that are afraid or that they shouldn't be there or they're corrupt, whatever the case may be, and they're choking out the people that are trying to do something. We need to
Yeah.
have a change in mentality.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And that's, so, I mean, when I was in remand and in federal penitentiary, I got thousands and thousands and thousands of letters from Holland and, of course, tons Canada, the US, England. Anyways, that was a big thing that I heard over and over and over from people was that um, it's hard to find that, and why they looked up to us and and sent us letters and everything was because it's hard to find men that'll stand up anymore because we've just gotten so soft, right?
Well,
And it
why
tends
are
to be Christian men.
but why aren't they giving the men that are not afraid to stand up the platform so that they can lead the other men?
Well, we know why, right?
Exactly.
Strong men worry them.
This is why we need to go back to God and we need to get the people and the churches need to
Amen.
start backing the people that are willing to stand up because this kind of filth cannot happen. I understand why Elijah came out of the mountain because he was a man that lived in the mountain. He saw the filth that they were doing and he said, absolutely not. And he rolled down and told the king like it was. And God respected him for doing that. And he called
Yep.
fire down from heaven. He was no different than any one of us that just got fed up of the evil and said enough. And that's what we need more of, right? Like, and the people should be rallying behind you guys, because you guys should, like, I mean, I pray to God that the judge does the right thing. But we need to have the people rallying for this, because this that has happened is being so disgusting, and it's just a disgusting train of events. And then we see
Yep.
what's going to happen with Derek. And I just pull this up here because he's having a rally. I'll just mention that here quickly. Whoops, wrong one. That's my book. Wrong button. Here's the thing for Derek. Right there. He's having the thing at the courthouse on the 24th at 8:15 a.m. If you can show up, please show up, because this is a
What
father
day is
who's
that?
let me he's a father trying to protect his child, and he's doing it for his religious rights, right? That
Yep.
is a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yes. Tuesday the 24th. So show up, because we need, like, honestly, like, I've said this pretty much in every speech I've ever done, and told people that we need to get back to God. This country, like we were talking
100%.
before, has, like, it is godless. We are looking at what they're doing is they're literally and I don't think that the state should control religion. No. But what they're doing is suppressing Christianity. And when you look at the practices, these are practices that God condemned in the Bible. They're allowing to be sanctioned as a religion. And they may not call it
Yep.
but it is a religion, and it's not a very good one.
No, that's for sure.
So we need to.
No, I believe the good book tells us about all this stuff gonna happen, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I know we're going to wrap up here, because I know it's getting kind of long here. We'll have to come back and talk about this when you have some time. But tell
For
people
sure.
how they can reach you and how can they help you.
Well, I don't have a Give Send Go or anything like that going anymore. Really the easiest way to reach me would be at my email, and that's Chris Carbert, so ChrisCarbert 77 obviously you can reach out to me there. Also, if I've obviously would, it's hard to ask this, but if people want to send donations, great, thank you. I appreciate it. I am constantly paying lawyer bills still. But yeah, that's, I mean, and then I have a Facebook page that is it is Chris Carbert's Echoes of Justice. It is a private group, so people can apply, ask to be approved, and I will approve them. And yeah, I post a little bit on. I'm not too terribly active right now on podcasts and everything. I've been trying to be a little bit quiet until this court case is over, but um, I decided a couple of weeks ago that it's time to start talking a little bit about it, because if they're going to decide my case based on what I've said on this podcast today, we are in serious trouble.
That's really it. And we have freedom of expression, freedom of speech. We should be
Or
able to
so we
talk
think.
about that. And people need to know what is going on, because they hid so much from your case from the public, which is
Oh yeah.
unusual for criminal
Well,
cases.
why wasn't the media there for the pretrial? Yes, there was a publication ban, but in a case this big, the media is always there, because the minute the trial starts, they're going to start talking about all the stuff in the pretrial. Well, the media wasn't there because the government asked them not to be there, is my guess. Because of the stuff that the lawyers were going to be talking about, and the things they didn't want the public to know, right? So, I mean, we were fortunate in the sense that we had some people, trying to get stuff out, which they obviously did a pretty good job. I mean, I'm being noticed in communities all over Alberta, right? So I've got a little bit of a, I guess you call it, I don't know what you get.
A following.
People know me. A following. There you go. I got a bit of a following from all of this, and it's been actually kind of neat and humbling and everything too.
Yeah,
People are, it's really because before COVID, I was starting to lose um, faith on humanity, really.
yeah,
And going through this has really built it up to show me that, man, is there ever a lot of good people left in this world?
oh yeah,
Oh, it's worth fighting for, my man.
yes. And I'll close here with a prayer, and then
Absolutely.
we'll be done. All right, Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all of the things that you have done for us. Lord, we thank you for the
Yes.
privilege of being able to call upon your name. And Lord, I ask of you this day to watch over Chris and his situation, and Tony now that he's out, and all the other people who are suffering in these situations. And Father, help them that they would get justice, and help that the men and women would come together to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, our nation, and especially that our men would come back and humble themselves before God. And Lord, I ask of you this day to strengthen us to stand up against this evil wickedness that is coming through this land, is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks,
All
my
right.
man.
All right. Thank you guys all for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
Yeah, you bet.